Good morning, oh no, it's not. It's good afternoon. Look at me. I say it's the afternoon. I am Debbie Mann. I'm with Festivals and Events Ontario, and today is our Tuesday Talks with FEO. A bit of housekeeping. If you're not already muted, could you please make sure you're muted? And if you have any questions for our guest speaker today, please feel free to either unmute yourself and ask a question, or type it in the chat, and either myself or Michael will be able to read it and answer your questions. So today our guest is Michael Bleau from EventHub. Michael is a co-founder and CEO of EventHub, and he works with hundreds of festivals, fairs, sporting events, and expos nationwide, many of whom were forced to go virtual in 2020. And is planning on a hybrid reiterations for 2021. Michael was, EventHub was the platform that we used for our virtual conference this year. And we got a lot of great feedback on it. So thanks, Michael, for joining us. And the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me. If you would like, feel free to come, keep yourself on mute, but turn your camera on. I like to see faces if I am getting too far in the weeds with anything, or if I'm particularly hitting something very exciting that people want to talk more about. And we have a nice sized group today to potentially do some interaction, and love if people are able to share any examples for things that they're dealing with, they're facing, help make it more relevant for everybody. Okay, so just a very quick background on EventHub if you don't know who we are. We are a sponsorship platform, and then we also have a virtual village or a virtual expo component. So sponsorship platform means we have a marketplace. So if you think Airbnb for booth and sponsorship opportunities at festivals, fairs, sporting events, expos, we match brands to your event opportunities, your event partnership opportunities. And then we give you a platform to streamline applications, payments, paperwork, logistics. We have a live floor plan for doing booth placements and upselling premium sponsor space. And then what we added that FEO was kind enough to trust us with for the conference was a virtual piece. So for that, we actually have some nice upgrades since then. We have added a welcome lobby, and we've added some different features like gamification, like a photo booth. So you can do photo booths, puzzles. A lot of people in events will drop in really cool things like scratch and wins or trivia. And then some other folks like runs will drop in their leaderboards, where the runners are on the map as they're running virtually, all different things you can imagine to really gamify it, make it fun and entertaining and engaging for the community. So it's not just programming. So that's some of what we do. And any other questions about that, feel free to reach out to us after at sales@eventhub.net, or my email, which Debbie's going to share with everyone after the presentation, I believe. So to kick things off, this is going to be about hybrid events, right? So hybrid events, why do them? Should we do them? How to monetize them so it's not just a bandwidth suck. I'm going to kick it off with 2 polls to get a baseline of where everyone's at and their appetite, your appetite for, how heavy to go into the virtual piece versus more general hybrid and supplemental hybrid stuff, which means like how much of a priority should it be versus a nice to have and a replay thing for after. So if you humor me, just a quick 2-question poll, going to leave it up for 1 minute, and then I'll look at the results, share them with you so you can get a baseline of where your peers are at as well. And then we'll jump into the presentation.
Don't see the poll.
Oh, you won't yet until it doesn't let me share until the results. So everyone who's not,
that's right.
You're not a host, so it's a host setting. You don't get to play. I'm sorry. I don't get to play either. We have 66% of people voted so far, so we're doing great. And if you just jumped in, we're doing an opening poll really quick to get a baseline of where everyone's at with their event planning and their live versus hybrid programming. Looks like we have 72% have voted so far. Give it another maybe 20 seconds and then we'll share with everybody. All right, here we go. So I'm going to share results. As you can see, it looks like most of the people that are here have an event coming up in the next few months. So very timely, which means you're also probably going to be doing a lot of hybrid and virtual, which is why you're here. So that's good. And then, yep, hybrid looks like 2/3 of folks are planning hybrid, and a third of you are planning to rock it just live. I'm going to assume that the people, which may be incorrect, but I'm going to assume the live only people are probably the ones that are April, May, and June 2022. All right, with that, I'm going to jump into the presentation. Let me know if for any reason this is blurry or anything like that. Can everyone see it clearly? Throw me a thumbs up. Perfect. So hybrid programming, what do you want to do with it? What's the goal? So number one is to inspire attendees and give them something fun and interactive, but also very easy to use so that they can come online and experience your programming digitally in addition to whatever live program you're doing, or instead of it if they can't make it or they're not comfortable coming out. Really what you're looking to do is ultimately we all make our business from the live event portion, right? The ticketing is highest revenue there, the sponsorship revenue is highest there. But with successful hybrid programming, you can both add to your overall live revenue, and then if it's more difficult to do live for any reason, such as capacity limits, you can certainly optimize and really maximize your potential reach and revenue and audience and engagement with the hybrid programming. So why add in or keep virtual components? Again, it's to really reach the widest possible audience. Debbie and I were talking before this that a lot of people are now able to reach audiences well outside of their own city, whereas before their event was hyper local. They've picked up fans across Canada. And people are now used to, so this is an important feature I like to talk to people about. People are used to virtual, right? They're used to digital things, so they're very comfortable interacting this way. Zoom fatigue is absolutely real, but online fatigue is kind of a myth. And the way I'll give an example about this is if you've ever been on 6 hours of Zoom calls and you're like, oh, I'm so brain fried from that. Let me just go on Insta for 20 minutes and take a break, right? That's online, that's digital. So you're not sick of online everything. You're just sick of the stress of being on camera is what's happening. Additionally, you're able to really build your audience year-round because most digital and online formats allow you to keep programming up throughout the year. So that allows you to cultivate things without instead of being just your one event that's your main festival or your main several events or half dozen or whatever your schedule is. That's really important, especially this year, because a lot of events have had to change their schedule. So it might be outside of people's normal routine when they came to your event, right? So reminding them when your event is, getting them hyped about it digitally is very important. And then you're able to, as I mentioned, actually increase sponsorship valuation, the value monetary people are willing to spend because of the digital piece when done well. And then I don't think that virtual is going to be the end all be all. I can't imagine after a week of hard Zooming, I'm going to really want to jump on and do a virtual beer fest, for example. But hybrid might be, right? I might want to go do a virtual beer fest, and then later I jump onto an AMA with the head brewmaster who I normally wouldn't have access to or something like that. So there's some really cool ways to integrate the two. As far as some key concepts. So you want to design everything with the attendee experience in mind, which in digital we call the attendee funnel, because they're coming in one place and then you're funneling them here or there. There's a lot of similarities with live event planning, really your attendee, where you're going to have the pedestrian funnel and walkway and things like that. But it's even more important with virtual because it's so easy for them to get a pop-up for something else or just close click. They're not a captive audience at your venue, essentially. You can do that by blending some live and recorded programming. You want to keep focused your CTA activities. Now, a CTA is a call to action. That could either be entering a contest. It could be simply clicking play to watch something. It could be engaging with the sponsor or playing a game or taking a photo virtually. So any different thing that's CTA, but essentially anytime you do anything online, you're doing a call to action, you're clicking on something to cause something. So that's really how you engineer an event, right? It's where are people going? What are they clicking on? What are they seeing? How are they searching? What are they excited about? And then giving them ways that they can organically come across your sponsors and it's not just a blasting pop-up ad in their face that they're going to think is a spam. That's important as well. And then finally, of course, not just for your sponsors, definitely for your sponsors, but not just for them, for your board members or for your main volunteers and things like that. How are you measuring the event digitally to say this was successful, this was meaningful, and this contributed to our bottom line and the attendee experience? So those are all things to kind of think about it as a broad level. I'm going to get into some of them in more detail than others, but of those who, call it out in the chat, which of these areas are people most excited about? Whoop, getting ahead. So of these 4 areas, what's really keeping people up at night, if anything, or is it more about the sponsor monetization, things like that? Feel free to throw any thoughts out in the chat. I'm going to check it out for like 10 seconds and then jump back in. John, pre-recorded is definitely easier. That is a good point. Tracking data. Thank you, Tracy. Cool. All right. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why live versus pre-recorded. So if it's all pre-recorded and it's all on demand, why does anyone go into your event at a specific time when they can do it whenever they want, right? And if you've ever been to a virtual conference that tells you way ahead that they're going to have everything for replay, how many sessions do you actually attend if you have something you'd rather be doing? And then you say, oh, I'm going to watch it later. And then do you actually get back to it later? You never do. So that's part of the problem, right? If you do it all pre-recorded and you don't do some type of urgency around it or exclusive window, you won't get people into your event at the time, and you probably won't get them in at all. So the advantages for live programming are creating that sense of urgency. The other biggest thing is facilitating two-way engagement, meaning if I'm doing a live presentation like this, if someone really wants to, they're like, wait a minute, stop, Michael. I want to know more about this right now. This is super important. You can't do that if it's pre-recorded, right? Maybe I can be in the chat doing some kind of a simu-live, but I can't answer you. It's not live fire. We don't have the same meaningful interactions as if it was, because it's not dynamic. And the other nice thing about that is if you do it live, people are way more forgiving. If you do it pre-recorded, people often expect a TV or broadcast quality production, and that's just not something that is in the wheel. It's not something that's the core strength of most festival producers and event producers, because we're really good at live events. Not if we wanted to do broadcast, we would have gone that way. So that being said, it's a heck of a lot of work to plan live programming, to coordinate everything, to get your speakers dress rehearsed and ready to go live and feeling good, and then cross-checking everything. So it is important to make sure it's manageable bandwidth-wise, and a great way to do that is to pre-record things, have certain pieces of content that can be on demand, or you do what's called a simu-live. So with that, it's an exclusive window, and it's broadcast as a live stream, but it is a pre-recorded thing. And you can queue that up. Actually, I think YouTube has a nice built-in feature to make it super easy. There's a bunch of streaming services out there that allow you to essentially do live stream broadcasts, and you can thread them, hopefully, through whatever venue you're doing. I don't have a slide for this, but I want to talk about it because it's really important. So if you don't thread your live stream through a venue or something like that, then Twitch or YouTube or whoever is monetizing your programming with their pop-up ads. If you're having it embedded in your virtual venue, you're able to monetize it with your sponsorship and partnerships and your impressions and things like that, and actually capture that value. So a lot of people say, oh, we're just going to give it away on YouTube. Guess what? YouTube just monetized it and made ad money off of all of your stuff. And at the same time, very little way for you to capture meaningful data, meaningful engagement. So I strongly advise not just doing a YouTube or a Twitch broadcast for your main programs. Talking about digital partnership concepts a little bit. So you really want to make it, as I mentioned, discoverable. You want to make it so people can find your sponsors, your vendors. You want to surprise and delight people with games and contests that feature different folks, and maybe a sponsor is doing a giveaway or a raffle or something like that. And then the other thing you want them to do is to have it meaningful engagement live. So for example, on our platform, you can do a live video chat in a vendor booth while shopping their crafts. This works really well for everything from, we have some like fiber and knitting shows to your classic fairs. and festivals, people being able to sell. And we have some high tech folks that are on there, but the key is the live engagement where you can talk to someone, get that expertise, learn who they are as a business. It gives you a sense for the company more than just buying something online. Because if you wanted to just buy stuff online, you can go to Amazon or Etsy, right? So that's not what we're trying to do with our experience. We're trying to give people that real like feeling where they know who they're dealing with and they know who they're supporting in terms of the business. This is really, really great for when you're trying to promote local businesses or organic or some very, very niche thing that you want to focus on and highlight it as a strength of your partnership. In terms of some of this stuff, we talked about some of the interaction already. We talked about the video chat. Again, I want to harp on the calls to action. And then the other thing with that call to action is you want to make it easy for people to give their contact information to generate sponsor and vendor leads for your folks. It might be obvious, but a lot of people go to do these and build these booths out. Make sure that your vendors and sponsors booths have been reviewed by you prior to the show. So it's up to your standards, because there's a very vast difference of some people want to do they'll try to embed like a virtual reality or AR experience. Some of our marathon vendors were doing Snapchat augmented reality where people were virtually trying on shoes on their actual feet. And then other people were just black text on a white background, one really blurry picture. And then they were like in their busy living room, in their messy living room when they were coming on. So it's really doing dress rehearsals and checking booths is just so important to make sure that everyone's quality and engagement level is up to your standard. In terms of what data to track.
Michael, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes, please.
Leanne asked, and I'm not sure you're familiar with this or not, but SOCAN and Tandem licensing issues and copyright issues with live streaming event. What are they and how do you protect yourself? Yeah. Go ahead.
So I'm not familiar with those. Are we talking about when live streams, if it mutes you because it recognizes it as a copyrighted song?
Leanne, do you want to talk to that?
You want to pop on? Feel free to pop off mute too and chime in.
Yeah, so obviously that's a big concern. I work for the CA Cambridge, and so we're thinking about having some small in-person events, but then live streaming it. And obviously there's a lot of concerns from our IT department. How do we protect ourselves? And we don't want to issue the City of Cambridge's YouTube account to live stream this performance, and something happens or unprofessional something. How do you then protect yourself against that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, with a live broadcast, you're always at the whim of whatever's happening, right? So that's a risk that you take versus pre-recording. What I'll say with the copyright issues are they local bands, or are they doing covers, or are they original local bands and things like that?
The first artist that we've selected is going to be they're performing their own music, so it's not an issue really for this first artist. But the second artist, I don't know if they have 45 minutes in the repertoire not to do any other music. That's the issue.
So if they're close enough to a major song and they're like matching it note for note, then they might trigger it on YouTube's a little more sensitive. Facebook, I think, is also really sensitive from what I hear. Vimeo, if you want to just consider a different option, Vimeo is not as sensitive, and it's also more protectable. So you can actually, like if you had a virtual venue, for example, you could restrict Vimeo to only embed within your virtual venue, and then do free registration to gate it or something like that, so that it wasn't just out there for the algorithms to crush. So that's a great way to get around it. And then you could also put some disclaimers within the virtual, your copy around that embed as well, so that people understood, hey, this is a live show, watch at your own risk. You could even do an 18 and up, or watch with the parent kind of disclaimer within a lot of venues and things like that virtually. So it just gives you a little more protection.
Okay.
Yeah, with YouTube, there's a risk if there's any big cover music, they're very aggressive about muting. I've heard also, though, if you do want to go the straightforward broadcast route, that Twitch is also less sensitive than YouTube for the live stream stuff. Good question. Thank you. And so in terms of analytics, there's two pieces that you can do. It's quantitative, which is, if you remember from math class or things like that, or whatever, science class, and qualitative. So analytics in virtual, you're looking at total impressions. You're looking at how long is someone on a given page, or how long are they on your entire virtual venue. Total views on a given piece of content or a given sponsor page, and then how many clicks are people doing in a certain booth. But then even better than that, some platforms, if you do registration, instead of just having it open to the public, even if it's free, can then track that behavior. And you can say, hey, these attendees at, like, for business conferences and business events, this is gold. But some consumer events like this too, is like, hey, these 300 people visited this booth. Here's their emails presenting a sponsor. If you'd like to do a special thank you gift or follow-up offer, or like us to do one on your behalf, we have that information to capture it. We can see where people were actually interested, so we can focus our content back for our live shows or for future hybrid stuff. We can see what things that they're clicking on and what they're not, so we can retool our design maybe from day to day during that event or for the next time we do the event. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do. And then qualitative feedback is just so important. So getting feedback from all of your stakeholders, right? Your volunteers are helping to set things up. How easy was it? How stressed are they? Your attendees, what are they enjoying? What do they feel like was missing, if anything? And then your sponsors, did they feel like they got the value? Is there anything you can do, if not, to surprise and delight them next time, or build into your sponsorship perk package next time? And then just seeing if people are resharing and posting if they're excited about it. Things like that are really key for assessing the qualitative value of your event and the success. So let's talk about money. Hybrid sponsorships are very interesting because you can go anything live, anything virtual, or some combo of the two. The most common ways to do a digital and physical thing would be to do what we call stoke boxes or swag boxes. So these are, and has anyone done these, by the way, yet for any of their events? Some kind of a swag send out or mailer or something like that with some branded stuff? If you have, love to hear your ideas on what you did. Feel free to jump off of mute and chime in, or put it in the chat.
Tracy did.
Yeah,
I did a really cool swag. So my company is, I'm a scent designer, I'm a perfumer. So I naturally scent spaces and hotels. So when the pivot came, our big thing was trying to keep connected to the consumer base using scent and kind of creating that live experience, even if they're at home safely. So we created a swag bag, and my festival is called Smelling Pink, and it's inspired around the cherry blossoms that come out in the spring, and it's connected to Mother's Day. And so we created a custom fragrance that mimicked the experience the consumer would get if they went to the cherry blossoms. And then around that, we added a branding opportunity for our support to throw their stuff in the bag. And what I learned from it is that was the most valuable piece of the festival. And next year, we're going to continue to do the online registration, deliver it to people's home, give them the scent to draw them to the actual festival. But the value proposition we connected with, we had people and companies who wanted to add stuff to our bags and were willing to pay. And I didn't realize what I was doing, how much money I could have made, and I kind of blew that.
But now you do, and you're going to do it again. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's your perfect use case.
That was my pivoting point.
That's really awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing. Let us know how you do and how much money you make from it. Yeah, that's such a perfect way to do it. So you have digital stuff, but you have a way to physically get things into people's hands when they're not getting anywhere else. And it can not only reward your sponsors and get them impressions and brand sampling, but it can get people to your event if you do something that's programmatic within the bag and not just sampling the products from sponsors. That's so key. A lot of people don't do that, and they'll just do the swag, right? Oh, here's all our swag, but then there's nothing about the actual event. There's nothing to get people really excited. So really glad that you took that step and glad it was successful. Other perks that people typically will do, You could have, whether it's a virtual thing or live, you have your MC announcements, you have your spotlighted offerings. Those are really easy to do virtually because you can do things like a pop-up special offer, or you could have some kind of a game or contest, as I mentioned earlier. In terms of the sponsored content, so if you're having a big performer or a cool panel or something like that, you can actually blend your pre-recorded stuff and have a sponsor record a 30-second announcement video announcing the program and then kick over to your live or semi-live broadcast. So there's a bunch of ways to give sponsors placements that feel organic, that feel threaded through, other than just having a spam ads all over the place, which is, everyone's already very savvy to that. In terms of how to sell things, so you're going to be framing it for vendors and sponsors based on where they're going to be, where they're showing up as far as their position. How are you highlighting their partnership with you? What other things can you do? If it's a swag bag, if it's a virtual or a physical swag bag, if it's, you're going to give a social media blast ahead of it and an e-blast after, thanking people on behalf of the sponsor. Are you doing anything else post-event for them? Maybe it's a webinar or something like that, a special workshop for an hour. And then in terms of what are you giving them within a booth to actually engage on their own and to build out and to show their offering for folks, is how much are you going to be able to charge going to be based on what they can actually do, how much customization they feel within the booth. And then finally, in terms of what are you offering them at the next live event, right? If you're only doing the hybrid once and you're going back to live, well, hey, if you do this hybrid thing with us, you get early bird booth choice, right, for our next live event. Or maybe next time, if you do this, we're going to give you a discount off the next hybrid version if you're going to do both or something like that. So there's ways to incentivize people. Just like at a live show, you come around the last day, if it's a great weekend, and you say, hey, you want to book your booth for next year? Early bird rate, early bird, preference. Same things, even better, can work with hybrid because people are all itching to get back to that live stuff. Now, in terms of how much to charge them, the biggest thing is just to not give away the digital. So don't give it away with your broadcast, just doing it online without any kind of branding around it. Don't give away your impressions digitally either for sponsors and say it's just a throw in, right? Back in the day before all of this COVID junk, people used to just throw in the digital. Oh yeah, you can have a blast, whatever. Guess what? Those are super valuable, especially now, and monetizable. So have them. That should be some monetary value of your sponsorships, not just an afterthought or a throw-in, because they're paying, I can tell you as someone who does Facebook ads, they're not cheap. So they're definitely worth something to get a very targeted niche audience with people that you're bringing to the table for the program. And in terms of how much you can charge, a lot of that's justified from what you can tell people in terms of that data, right? Where did the attendees go? Who visited your booth? I'm going to draw attendees in to give you a bunch of leads, or I'm going to be able to just pull the registration from everyone who visited your booth on the back end, who clicked on something and said, here, send them a coupon. So that type of stuff all gives you the ability to increase the value that you're charging for sponsorships and justify that cost. So that's the short and sweet part. I don't like to talk a lot because I want to leave room for discussion. And Debbie, how long do we have for this to chat? Sorry, you're on mute. I think you said 4 hours. We have about 4 hours left.
Yeah, 4 hours left. No, we have 30 minutes left.
Oh, 30 minutes. Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
So if there's any discussion, yeah, open up your mics and ask Michael anything that you need to. Okay, go ahead.
I keep it short and sweet, by the way, because studies show that after 30 minutes of someone talking, you tune them out and get bored, no matter how entertaining they are. And I'm not like an A-list celebrity or performer at this point yet. Maybe one day I'll bring out my kazoo skills to a pro level, but for now I'm an amateur. So I am happy to discuss. And oh yeah, I can drop my contact info in the chat. So that's me. And then it's EventHub.
And I'll make sure that everybody gets it when I send up the link for the recording.
And if you just want like a quick demo on it with one of our sales crew, I think Ainsley is on this call. You can hit her up at. Did I get that right, Ainsley?
Got it right. I was just typing it in. Thanks.
Cool. So I'm going to ask you some questions then, if that's okay. So who produces Of the people who are producing an event in the next 3 months, I have noise interference. Can everyone still hear me?
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah.
So for people who are producing something in the next 3 months, what is your current plan? Like, how much are you leaning into the hybrid? What's your current capacity? You're thinking you're like, how far are y'all away from coming back to full capacities? And what are you planning around that, if anything? And I know it was 50% of you, and there's still 50% on the call.
So we're not looking at full capacity. We couldn't possibly. Our events are 8,000 plus people. So we're just looking at real small, having one performer perform and in and out, 45 minutes, dedicated event space. But it wouldn't start until stage 3. So we have to watch the provincial reopening plan and sort of monitor that. We were hoping to start, do it in July and August, but now it's looking more like just August. But obviously with cost containment strategies, we lost the majority of our budget. So as much as we have all these grandeur plans to do hybrid and, this, that, and everything else, we just don't have the funds to do it, which is hard. And I'm sure everyone's sort of, has that same sort of issue. We do have some dedicated sponsors for sure that, can help us. But it is hard to plan when you never really know what's going to happen next.
I understand that. That's a really good point you made. So a lot of folks think that, not that this is your organization, but a lot of folks say, okay, if we're going to do hybrid, we're going to hire an AV company and do a production, and then we're going to pay some big people to come on it, or like pay someone to build out this really expensive venue. There's enough technology solutions, not just ours, but there's other options out there that you can really plug and play and build your own virtual venue. It just takes time and careful planning. And in terms of that, so part of the problem is a lot of live production companies and AV companies shifted to doing virtual, but they're charging the same rates as if they were coming out with a crew of 12 people for the day and bringing, thousands of dollars worth of equipment, when really they're just on like a lot of times building out a WordPress site and running some Zoom rooms and things like that. So typically when you're doing these live events, or you're doing a hybrid format, it's a fraction of the cost it should be of a live event. And it's much easier to justify your spend to get ROI. So for example, we have, I think I mentioned like a knitting show. Well, the event cost them 10% of what it did before, and they made 50% of what they do normally. So guess what? They actually made 5 times in profit what they normally do. So there's some really great ways to be successful at it. If it's revenue generating or revenue based. If it's a community event, I totally understand there's some restrictions that you have to deal with there and limitations, but there's a lot you can do virtually on the cheap. I'm going to answer Catherine, I think, and then Tracy. So Catherine, are you asking me if the same or different registration rates for live versus live and hybrid, or?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so I would recommend not upcharging for the digital piece. What I would do is actually sell the virtual only piece cheaper, but then include the virtual piece with the live, because you ultimately want to drive as many people live as you can. Unless you're sold out of capacity for the live already, in which case that's a different situation. What type of event?
It's a conference.
Okay, so are you planning to not have enough capacity for live, or is the goal to get as many live registers as you can, but then
Goal is to get it made live, but if people don't feel safe enough coming to a live event and they will prefer stay home, then we're trying to offer options for them as well.
100%. So what I would say is that you want to make it, I would do the hybrid at a fraction, but a fraction so that they still have to think about it, if that makes sense, depending on whatever your normal price point is. And definitely throw in the hybrid with the live so that you get additional eyeballs there and things like that from the sponsor side and just from the engagement side. So it's busy for the hybrid portion. The other, I don't know if you're already too far down the road with programming, but there's a festival conference that's doing their live event, and then the next week they're doing a half-day live virtual event. so that people can experience both. They don't have to, the people that are at the live event can get that whole thing. And then there's kind of a mini version of that for people that's still live versus just a replay or recordings type of situation. That seems to be working very well for them. Does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Sure. Okay, Tracy.
Yeah, Michael, I was just going to comment, I think with Leanne, and just share that when we did our festival, obviously we were in the heart of COVID. We were, I think, the only festival happening in Ontario in April. It did turn completely online. But at the end of it, because Ontario never opened, the sponsors and the organization in the city that were involved all agreed that the online component was something we never wanted to get away, because we got people from different parts of the world. We had people come in from Halifax, from Vancouver. It was actually quite impressive on how many people were logging in and checking this out. And one of the things we did was a virtual market during the day for corporate that you normally would never see those people come out. And there was such an interesting give back. And then we're hoping to take that platform this year and again, have the live market on the Saturday and the Sunday, but still do the virtual on the Friday, because there's this unbelievable opportunity that I never want to lose. Like I, as much as I hate, Zoom calling and all this stuff, and I'm very much into live, I have to be honest, COVID really taught me the opportunities. And we did not hire a production company to do that. We worked with a different firm that put something out very professional, but it was literally under $2,000. Like, it was not a lot of money. And I was really impressed on how companies were pivoting. And I don't know, it's something that just to give feedback to, it wasn't a budgetary thing, but live is important, but I think it will even be better because it is something that you can add to value to participants, but then you can reach people that you could never reach before.
Yeah, 100. I think that's exactly right. So you don't have to break the budget to do something cool that's virtual or hybrid. Absolutely right on the nose. And you don't have to do it yourself too. There are freelancers out there or companies that are cheaper budget that can do these types of things affordably. The other piece that you mentioned was that you did it on a Friday for the virtual piece, and then you did the live one on the weekend. Yeah, so that's a really strong use of virtual. A lot of folks are using them as what we call a preview or a kickoff party or night or something like that. And then a lot of folks are using virtual as their like a virtual press junket or a lineup announcement type of thing.
Well, and just one thing to say, I was not my event, but they did another event with the Board of Trade on an evening, and I just see Sarah put something up for a gala event. And for people who don't drink and drive, what they did is they partnered with the local restaurants and had the food delivered and a bottle of wine delivered to the house. And they did the virtual the night before, and you could easily do the virtual the night before and then jump into the live party, but you're still capturing two totally different markets. I don't know, like I was just reading her comments and I thought, I remember being at the Board of Trade and I had, slippers on and I was all dressed up, but my feet were comfortable and I had a glass of wine and I was eating, it was chatty, it was fun. And I was thinking, oh, I wish every event could be like this.
I've heard that a lot too. Yeah, I've heard a lot of galas. People really love it. So like on one hand, some people love the dress up and coming out and stuff like that. And a lot of people were really digging their slippers and had their wine at home and they were happy. And what's interesting about that too, is a lot of times these online auctions do a lot better than the live auctions. So if that's a component of fundraising, then think about that. For some reason, when they're online, people are just like impulsively click, win, bid. So you can actually, statistically across the board, I've heard that revenue for online auctions is higher than the live stuff. So something to think about if you're in the fundraising, especially in the gala space. I've seen that do really well.
Can I mention something too, just based on what Sarah's question as well, is because I see Daniel has a question for sponsors. Culinary tourism did something last year where they brought, they were all about, of course, culinary, and they did all different, they brought a restaurateur from France or Italy, and he gave a demonstration to their to the people who attended from overseas. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do virtually, and it's going to cost you a fraction of the price, right?
Yep.
Anyways,
Yeah, I'll give you a great example of that. We had a surprise, and the other thing is that you can do things on the fly, right? So we were helping to produce an event called Event and Arena Marketing Conference last week. And so normally that event floats around the US, LA or OC or something like that, but they were not sure about getting this really special surprise guest. But because it's a virtual event, you don't have to plan an entire production around it, right? Ultimately, this person jumped in on Zoom, and they got them the day before to confirm last second that they could do it. And they could have easily plugged in an alternate speaker or something. But so it's like, and it wasn't fancy. It was, so Dave, if you know the Foo Fighters or Nirvana, Dave Grohl popped into this virtual event on our platform. Blew my mind because I'm a rock geek going back a long time. And it was just in his house at his office, like all the rest of us, just hanging out. But it was, you didn't need a stage and all this other stuff. It was just so cool because you just want to hear live from Dave Grohl. You're not worried about all the pomp and circumstance in that situation. So, and it was affordable, right? Because normally you have a mega rider and this person's losing an entire day. This was one of 12 stops on his press day when he was making the announcement that the Foo Fighters were going to be the first full capacity Madison Square Garden show last week. We were a 30-minute stop of 10 or 20 that he was doing that day. And he was just able to plug and go into the next one. And we would have never got him for a live show because he's got to fly in, you got to put him up. He's got to have a rider and all this other stuff. And he's got to meet his avail versus, Billboard or something like that. So that's some of the cool stuff is availability, whether they're international or whether they're a really big name. You'd be surprised. People are a lot more available to come on a virtual thing.
Nice.
Great point.
Do you want to?
Okay, I want to. Yeah.
Get back to Daniel's.
Yes, I do. So Daniel, are you on? Do you have mic? If you have a microphone. Oh, thank you, Stephanie. That's very nice of you. So, okay, Daniel, assuming that you do not, oh, you do have audio. Perfect. So talk to me about what your sponsorships like typically look like at a live event.
Well, I have a bank, TD Bank. I also have different sponsors from the community, from the Latin community.
And then what do your sponsors, so I guess generally, do your sponsorships have a big on-site component, or what types of perks are you offering with those sponsor packages?
It's years ago, it was more, how can I explain? At John Dundas Square with different things, and because we had 50,000 attendees, and
yeah.
But also at the opening reception, but now it's going to be only 2 days, but I don't know how it's going to be the circumstances. But also we are going to have 5 days online in December.
Got it. And then your capacity is going to be less than 50,000 for the 2 days?
No. This year is going to be 1,000.
Cool. How much? You said 1,000?
Yes.
Okay, so it's going to be reduced. So in that scenario, and the reason I asked that is because it really depends. If you're charging them only for the digital piece, typically it's a fraction of what it would be live. It's less cost to support them, and again, your overall event is costing you less, so you don't have the same ROI threshold, unless you can get the same amount, in which case, by all means, aim for the stars. But I think, if I'm not misunderstanding, you were also asking, do I charge sponsors the same or different for hybrid, which means live and virtual? So in that scenario, if you have that few attendees live, then I would do some adjustment. but I wouldn't, you know, maybe 10 cents on the dollar. It's going to be some fraction of what it would normally be. The hybrid is going to give you that value back that you're losing from the live engagement for sure. I don't know that it'll be one-to-one. It's really if you want to follow up with this after, I would want to look at your sponsor package and really have to analyze it to give you a proper, you know, not just off the cuff answer on that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to do that. If you want to shoot me a note, we can look at your sponsor, set me your sponsor package ahead, and we can chat through it. If anyone else wants to do that, first time I'm offering that, I thought I'd try it something. So if you do want someone to be like, hey, these don't make sense, I would never pay. So my background before EventHub was I ran, oh man, several hundred sponsor activations at all different festivals. I was the guy that came in and booked for experiential agencies when they were doing their trailer tours and their pop-ups and food truck tours and all that kind of stuff. So I have a good sense of what those folks at least will pay for. Did that help you at least get a start though? I would really look at comparative events and what they're charging in your area for hybrid, get some baseline there, and then base it how your attendees stack up versus that. You know, what's your email size list? How many virtual attendees do you think you can get to register so that you have guaranteed registrations and information and things like that to plan off of, and then it'll give you some basis to price out from. Amanda, I see a hand raised. Do you have a question?
Hi, yes, I do. I work for Peterborough Music Fest, and we run a free music festival 2 nights a week all summer long. And a big part of our sponsor perks is being on site at our festival. They get tickets in our VIP section, they get a meet and greet. Mm-hmm. But of course, moving forward, we are probably going to be seeing some reduced capacity. So how do we still keep our sponsors and continue to bring them in with reduced capacity when we obviously want to save a lot of our capacity for our attendees?
Yeah, and they take up a disproportionately amount of room because it's like a sponsor suite normally?
Yeah, so basically we are in a 4-acre park and the event's free. So whoever shows up, you don't have to register. However, if you're a sponsor, you get a certain amount of tickets depending on your package, which could take up towards 400 seats some night, which is a lot, especially with social distancing. That capacity might not be able to be the same.
So they just bring everyone and it takes all your capacity. I see. So first thing I would do is limit the tickets for sure, like trim the sponsored ticket. Do you put a cap on it normally?
Yes, and then they also have a night of recognition where they're able to bring a lot more people. And what we're kind of worried about is telling them when we go back, thank you for supporting us for 10, 20 years. However, you can't have all the people who have been attending for so long back. And I think it's kind of an awkward balance for us to keep them still engaged and showing that we're appreciating them, but you can't bring as many people as you have been before.
Yeah. Well, so ideas to supplement that could be, if you're not able to do as many of the meet and greets as well, or if the performers aren't into it, you could do a virtual AMA instead, where they actually get to ask. It's not just like 20-second photo up, no, get out of here, where they actually get to ask questions and hear some feedback from the artist virtually, sometime around the event as a really nice supplement. Like those work very, very well. I like them better, and you can still do a Zoom screenshot or something like that of everyone in the group, right?
Right.
So it's not like they can't get that photo op with they really just want to say, look at this face that I know that I saw that knows me now.
Exactly.
That's the meet and greet hype. You can do that virtually for sure, but what you can't do in person is, actually, we're going to do a group forum real quick, and I wanted to ask you about this and that. And you can prep them for that ahead of time. It can be a 20-minute AMA, and people will love it. They'll feel like they're have this intimate moment with this person. So I'd recommend looking at some things like that. In terms of the sponsor thing, I think if you lay it out like you just did now, it sounds something that people should have compassion for. And the way you just described it, be like, look, we really appreciate your sponsorship. Unless you're covering our entire budget, bring, this is the one component of what we do, and we need to make sure that we have the capacity for other folks that want to enjoy the event. I think most sponsors hopefully will be sympathetic to that. Maybe, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully there will be.
Great. Thank you so much.
For sure. Thanks. Jay had a suggestion about potentially, what about just doing one night for, so the sponsored recognition night, is that something you also don't want them, do you want to taper that back in terms of who they can bring, or does that just go nuts and then that's the night they can bring whoever?
Yeah, it just, the only thing is with our festival for years and years, and of course after this, it's going to look different. So we could do a one night only for sponsors. It just might not be able to be in our typical venue, which is fine because that's a good opportunity for more partnerships within the community. But then we go, this has been happening for 30 plus years. So then we don't want to displease our audience members who religiously come out 2 nights a week since it started. But of course, moving forward, we will need to pivot and to kind of try new things. And if they work, they work, but it's a good time to kind of maybe do a sponsors only night and have them exclusively at our park.
And did you say that people just come and show up? They don't, do you do pre-registration?
No, we don't do any pre-registration. It's an open event. We don't fence the park. We don't, except for a VIP section. And then we have a couple vendors that can register there. So if we brought in pre-registration, because it's just in an open park, people could probably still just come down anyways.
Yeah.
It would just be, we don't want to have to.
Well, yeah, that's my first thought is if you have limited capacity, why maybe throw up a gate, like throw up some fencing and say, hey, because of the limited capacity, and hey guys, I don't know if you heard COVID, so we're going to limit capacity and this is how much it is, and pre-register, even if it's free. Honestly, even if it's just $1 you donate to charity, it's like that mental commitment of paying $1 for something, people will show up way more. But that's my recommendation would be to gate the event because you have a limited capacity, and then you could limit it in terms, because how else are you limiting the sponsors and how many people they bring at the same time, right? So I would honestly go to a registered format just for this year, and then pre-reg, and then you know exactly how much capacity you have to plan for anyway based on the registration. And if you don't want to take money, then just be like, hey, it's $1 for charity or something. You know, some community organization you can partner with, it's a great thing too. But that is just the psychological thing of investing $1 means you can count on the registration numbers to be accurate, basically, is what you're doing.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I don't know. It may be too radical, but that's what I would do, because otherwise, like you said, I don't know how you're going to control it if it's just, because the old sponsors will tell the people to show up anyway if it's just, you know, open access.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
For sure. All right, perfect. I think that covers all the questions we had. So thanks very, very much for having me today. Any final questions or comments or thoughts before we sign off?
Well, we've had some, Paula said such great information, comments, thanks. And you said thank you. So that's really good. Yeah, it was great, Michael.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate the kind feedback from everyone. We'd love to talk to y'all and learn more about your events. So definitely, if you have follow-up questions for me after, you want me to take a look at your sponsorship deck or some of the hybrid programming you're planning, we're happy to chat through that with you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. And for next week, we have Haney McHale from Rest Counts joining us at 11, not at noon. And we look forward to seeing you there. And if you have any questions, yeah, you know where I am, and I'll get Michael's information out to you if you haven't copied it down. So thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Thanks, Michael. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks.